Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're becoming detectives, but our crime scenes are centuries, even millennia, old. We're talking about unmarked graves, forgotten cemeteries, and mass burial pits. For most of human history, the stories of the people buried there were lost forever. But now, a field called forensic archaeology is giving a voice to the dead, combining the meticulous digging of archaeology with the cutting-edge analysis of forensic science. This discipline is literally rewriting the human story, one skeleton at a time. So how does it work? Forensic archaeology is more than just digging up bones. It's the systematic recovery and analysis of human remains to answer questions of legal or historical importance. While it has roots in older disciplines, it truly came into its own in the 1980s and 90s. Its methods were honed in the harrowing but vital work of investigating human rights violations, like identifying the disappeared in South America and excavating mass graves from the conflict in the Balkans. These high-stakes investigations, along with high-profile crime scenes like the excavation of the serial killers Fred and Rose West's garden in the UK, prove the power of using proper archaeological methods. Instead of just digging, they used techniques that preserved every tiny clue about the context of the burial. This discipline has shown us that by examining the silent language of a skeleton and the soil it lies in, we can reconstruct entire narratives of social status, health, disease, violence, and the family ties that bound ancient communities together. So how do these bone detectives begin their investigation? Often, it starts before anyone even picks up a shovel. One of the most important tools in the modern forensic archaeologist kit is ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. Imagine a high-tech lawnmower that doesn't cut grass, but instead sends electromagnetic pulses deep into the ground. It then listens for the echoes of these pulses as they bounce off different materials. A change in the soil density, a buried wall, or, crucially, the disturbed earth of a grave will create a distinct signal. This creates a kind of underground map, showing anomalies below the surface without disturbing a single grain of dirt. GPR is invaluable for locating unmarked graves in historic cemeteries, or even identifying potential burial sites at sensitive locations like former residential schools. It allows archaeologists to plan their excavations with surgical precision. Once a burial is confirmed, the real slow, methodical work begins. The team sets up a grid system over the site. Every single find, from the skeleton itself to the smallest pottery shard or soil sample, is mapped and documented in 3 dimensions. This painstaking process is essential for reconstructing the scene and understanding the sequence of events that led to that person's burial. But the real magic happens back in the lab. This is where a suite of advanced analytical techniques unlocks the secrets held within the bones and teeth themselves. Perhaps the most revolutionary of these is ancient DNA analysis, or aDNA. Since scientists first managed to sequence DNA from an ancient source in the 1980s, the technology has leaped forward. Today, using what's called next-generation sequencing, we can reconstruct entire genomes from tiny, fragmented pieces of DNA that are thousands of years old. This has completely changed the game. aDNA can tell us an individual's genetic ancestry, their biological sex, and even their predisposition to certain diseases. It's an indispensable tool for tracing ancient migration patterns and, as we'll see later, for rebuilding entire family trees from the grave. Another incredibly powerful tool is isotope analysis. It sounds complicated, but the principle is simple. You are what you eat, and you are where you live. Different foods and different geographic areas have unique chemical signatures, specifically in the ratios of isotopes of elements like carbon, nitrogen, strontium, and oxygen. As you eat and drink, these isotopes are absorbed into your body and become a permanent part of your bones and teeth. By analyzing these ratios, scientists can reconstruct an individual's diet. For example, a diet heavy in marine life will have a different nitrogen isotope signature than a diet based on terrestrial plants. Furthermore, strontium isotopes vary depending on the local geology. Because this signature gets locked into your tooth enamel during childhood, scientists can analyze a tooth and determine the geological region where a person grew up. If that signature is different from the strontium in their bones, which remodel throughout life, it's a clear sign that the person migrated at some point. It's like a chemical passport stamped into your skeleton. Add to this advanced imaging techniques like CT scans and 3D modeling, which allow for non-destructive analysis of bones to see trauma and disease, and you have a toolkit that can paint a remarkably detailed picture of an individual's life. So what kinds of stories emerge when these tools are put to use? Let's start with social status. The way a society treats its dead is a powerful mirror of its social structure. One of the clearest indicators is the amount of energy spent on the burial. A massive, elaborate tomb that required a huge amount of labor to build tells you the person inside was important enough to command those resources, a clear sign of a powerful elite. Grave goods, the items buried with a person, are also a huge clue. The quantity and quality of objects can speak volumes about wealth. Exotic items from faraway lands indicate access to long-distance trade and high prestige. For instance, a 9,000-year-old burial in southern Jordan contained an individual buried with sophisticated artifacts and exotic goods. This suggests they were a person of high status, likely achieved through trade. But the grave was located near less elaborate burials, suggesting that while this person was important, they were still seen as part of the wider community. It gives us a nuanced look at early social hierarchies. Sometimes, grave goods can even prove the existence of inherited or ascribed status. When archaeologists find infants or young children buried with valuable items, it's a strong sign that wealth and power were passed down through family lines, since a child wouldn't have had time to earn that status themselves. Beyond status, skeletons are a remarkable archive of health and disease. This field, called paleopathology, gives us a window into the living conditions of our ancestors. A simple visual examination of bones can reveal a lot. The characteristic lesions left by infectious diseases like tuberculosis or leprosy are often visible on the skeleton. Signs of nutritional deficiencies are also common. A condition called cribra orbitalia, which looks like porous, spongy bone in the eye sockets, can be a sign of anemia, likely caused by a poor diet or parasitic infections. Teeth are also a fantastic source of information. A high number of cavities often points to a diet rich in carbohydrates, a pattern seen with the rise of agriculture. Scientists can even look at microscopic wear patterns on teeth to get detailed information about the specific types of food someone ate. And, of course, aDNA analysis has taken this a step further, allowing us to identify the specific pathogens that caused ancient plagues and trace how they evolved over time. Sadly, the human story is often a violent one, and the archaeological record bears witness to this. Skeletal trauma provides direct evidence of interpersonal violence and warfare. Forensic anthropologists are trained to read the story of an injury on a bone, distinguishing between blunt force trauma, sharp force injuries from blades, and projectile wounds from arrows or spears. By looking at the pattern and location of injuries, and whether they show signs of healing, they can reconstruct violent events. For example, a bioarchaeological study of a 10,000-year-old burial site in northern Chile found that a significant number of individuals showed signs of lethal trauma, suggesting violence was a consistent part of life in this ancient hunter-gatherer society. In other cases, spikes in violence are linked to periods of social change. Mass graves provide the starkest evidence. The analysis of a 5,000-year-old mass burial in Poland, for example, used aDNA to reveal the brutal and systematic massacre of an entire extended family, all killed by blows to the head. It's a chilling but important window into the realities of past conflicts. Perhaps one of the most exciting developments is the ability to reconstruct ancient families. Kinship is the bedrock of most societies, but it was always difficult to prove from archaeology alone. The arrival of ancient DNA analysis changed everything. Now, By comparing the genetic material of individuals buried near each other, we can directly determine their biological relationships. This has led to some incredible discoveries. In Germany, the analysis of a 7th-century graveyard revealed that 5 of the 13 people buried there were close relatives, showing that early medieval households were a mix of kin and non-kin. Interestingly, the related individuals were buried with items from different cultures, suggesting cultural appropriation or exchange was happening even within a single family. Even more amazing, a study of an early Neolithic tomb in Great Britain allowed researchers to reconstruct a 5-generation family tree. The DNA showed that the family followed a patrilineal system, where descent was traced through the male line. It also showed that women tended to marry into the group from outside, and that stepsons, sons of women who married into the family but had a different biological father, were accepted and buried in the family tomb. This is a level of social detail we could only have dreamed of just a few decades ago. Now, it's important to remember that this work comes with heavy ethical responsibilities. These are not just artifacts, they are human remains. The individuals being studied never consented to their graves being opened and their bodies analyzed. This raises complex questions about ownership of the past. In the United States, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, or NAGPRA, has forced the field to confront these issues by mandating the return of remains to descendant communities. This has led to much greater collaboration between scientists and indigenous groups. There's also the issue of destructive analysis. Techniques like DNA and isotope analysis require destroying a small piece of bone or tooth. While the information gained is invaluable, the decision to do so is never taken lightly. As the field of forensic archaeology continues to evolve, new technologies promise even more discoveries. The continued improvement of aDNA analysis, the use of multiple isotope systems at once, and even the integration of artificial intelligence to analyze vast datasets will push the boundaries of what we can know. Forensic archaeology is a journey into the very heart of what it means to be human. It's a story of family, conflict, status, and survival. Thanks to the tireless work of these scientific detectives, the silent stories buried beneath the soil are finally being told, reminding us that even in death, our ancestors still have so much to teach us.